You're welcome to Cloud Training for Enthusiasts again. My name is Osato and I'm Patrick Aigbogun. We're still talking about Docker. Yesterday, we talked about the architecture and the infrastructure that surrounds Docker. Why are we using Docker? What's the advantage of Docker over every other containerization? And why Docker? Why not RPM? The regular installation of application on your VM or your application or your server directly. So we were able to establish yesterday that Docker provides us the opportunity to manage our application in a portable way and scale up the application without continuously installing those patches. Understand? So by putting a Docker demo or a Docker engine to be running while you just end up putting the application, right? Just zipping the image and running the image as a container. So that was what we were able to establish yesterday. And let me just take a little quick run just to revamp our mind so that, because today we're going to be practicing all we have talked about yesterday. Somebody mentioned that I should share this thing with him. Even if I share with you, you may not understand it in-depthly, you understand? So we talked about VM yesterday, that VM is just like a server that is virtualized. So you are using this part of this server as if you're using a server, right? So we have a VM, which is a bare metal that has an hypervisor one installed on it so that you cannot share that server and use that server in that unit of that server independently. So the unit of the server is called an instance, and you can allocate resources with it. That after you have an instance running, you have to install an operating system. And after you install an operating system, you have to install a Docker. When you install a Docker on it, that does not mean that that VM cannot have another application. Like I shared yesterday, my laptop has a Docker, and you also have other application running in it. So having a Docker in your engine machine does not mean you cannot install another application directly as RPM. Just that it will be better, you just keep managing your application under that Docker. You understand? So that is it. So I now mentioned that what Docker does is that it provides this underlying application infrastructure so that when you want to just install any application, all you just need to do is to zip the application directly into it and you are okay. You understand? Just pick up the image and zip. So yesterday, I also talked about, let us install this Docker engine so that today we'll just be zipping the application and exposing it to a port and be running with it. So that is what we are starting with today. So we are going to be zipping. And those of us that have not installed, I will also provide the guidance how you can install it. I want to be zipping and be enjoying it. Then after that, we'll now also talk about how to build an application that's already in RPM, how to make it a Docker application. So it's not all application that's already RPM that you can Dockerize, you understand? You have to write a file that will enable that Docker engine to convert that RPM. What if I mean by RPM? I mean a regular application that have an installation drive, you understand? So that is it. So let's go into the practice today. So, and any question? So I always say this, if I join any company, what I always do, I clean up my deck. After cleaning up my deck, I always use the word sheet. Sheet is like a language used in IT world that compiles all the basic syntax and basic code that is related to a particular programming language or application. If I say CLI sheet, this is a CLI sheet. If I say Docker sheet, you can see this is a Docker sheet. Sometimes it's organized by the application. Sometimes somebody can just take the pain off your neck by helping you to just compile those sheets together. Now you just use it. This one say the ultimate Docker sheet for Docker Lab. And be careful when you are using this, when you are downloading this sheet, because sometimes you can end up downloading some virus. So that's why you also look at for the domain name. As I mentioned, You don't just download any application. You don't just click anything. You can see this extension as docs.docker.com. This last part is the most important part. Docker.com, it means that this particular website is owned by Docker. You understand? This is docker.com. So, but you see this one, dockerlabs.collabnix.com is owned by collabnix.com. So they are just doing an application or a service by Docker Lab. I'm not saying it's not secure, it's secure, just understand that this one is owned by somebody else. Understand me? The same thing, this is italyparts.com. You can see this sheet. I know this company, they are very good in LMS. So this one is for Docker Up, meaning that this, you can see once wsargent dockersheet.com, meaning somebody else with the username wsargent. This is the sheet he created. So you can start to come here and just pick anyone and download the sheet so that, because not every time you remember all this Docker stuff. You understand? Not every time you remember it. So sometimes it's just good for you to have a sheet, you understand? Something that will help you to just, if you want to do anything, you can just know, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to go about it. So you can look out for the, application for the stuff that will help you succeed in doing that. I think let's take up this sheet. I think this is also okay. Okay, let's say these are the sheets. You can see there's no way I'm going to have to log into Docker. If you want to log into Docker without, this is how you log into Docker. Log out, search option, to create a container, to run it, to rename a container. If you want to rename a container, understand? So I can share this link with you to list the network that's already existing. Understand? So I would recommend you use this, you take this to list Docker image, to remove the image. Please, I would recommend you use this to check the, maybe this was what I was doing now. Docker PS, Docker stuff. This is Docker to remove everything that is in the system. To add volume. Volume means hard drive. You can share from your memory for Docker, any Docker application for using it. So I will just share this with you. We're preparing us to work. So that you will not be saying, Patrick, will not be calling somebody, please. How do you? But it's not hard. Just look at any sheet and just look for it and use it. Okay, now let's go.
Patrick, I have a question. If the organization had been using Docker before and we're not the first, what are the things we need to be careful of so we're not deleting everything they have in their excuse me, that they have in their repo Z3?
Can you touch
on that, please?
One, you cannot delete all they have in their repository, because unless you are the admin managing that repository, right? Two, if a company uses a Docker before, the company will give you the documentation of all their Docker file, how they build their own Docker file. So just the way I'm explaining all these things to you, you will see how the Docker file is actually being built. You understand? You read it just the way. Remember when we were doing that Ubuntu, that Ubuntu WordPress on Ubuntu, right? I shared the documentation to you. That's how the documentation was supposed to look like, step by step on how to build it. Nobody will come and start telling you how to build it, right? They expect you to understand it. And if you don't understand it, it means that you don't even know, you don't even have any business being there.
Okay. When do we use Docker? Is it when we have a new resource that's just joined the organization and they want to set up their own work environment. So we
Okay.
now,
The answer is simple. Every application that is Docker, that is containerized, mostly use Docker. Number one. Number two, a Kubernetes engine mostly use Docker. So any application they want to put either in Docker Swarm or they want to put in Kubernetes engine uses Docker. When the developers finish writing their code or their features, right, they are going to put it in a repository. You are to write how to Dockerize that repository by either by adding a file called Docker file, or you write a Linux script that will step-by-step Dockerize it, or some CI/CD pipeline, maybe that uses external application, external file like Groovy file. You can also list those steps into it. You understand me? That okay, pick up this file, convert this file to a Docker file. After Dockerizing it, build it, start the container, push the running Docker file into this ECRO. You understand me? That process is called, when you write a file to do that for you continuously, it's called continuous delivery. That's if you are delivering it into ECRO. But sometimes you may just decide to, immediately developers finish doing their development and they push to their repo. Are you getting me? Automatically, your CI/CD pipeline, which could be Jenkins or CI or Circle CI or Travis CI, depending on the one they are using, or even Git Action, immediately it's committed into that master branch or that tag, it will automatically take up and build it. Then after building it, it will deploy it straight to your Kubernetes engine. That is called continuous deployment. So as they are finishing their work, it's committing to the repository, your Docker file that you already written before. You understand? Since it's the same code, right? It's just that something was also added to it. It will look for that Docker file. It depends on how you write your CI/CD flow to Dockerize it and deploy it into Kubernetes engine, and you will see it live. But sometimes it's not the best practice to deploy directly into Kubernetes engine. You're supposed to deploy it into your ECRO, especially in production environment. And from ECRO, you now write a Kubernetes file that will continuously deploy it anytime it changes. So it depends on how you do it. But what I'm trying to say is that you Docker file, most times you only write it once. When you write it once, unless there's a new change in infrastructure, that's when you now go and start editing it. So if it's a company that's already using a Docker file and that application is already running in that, for example, the developers are already using Golang, God bless you. You understand? You are blessed among God nations. But if, like my case, there was a time they now brought in new developers that were not using Golang. They were using Node.js. Some of them were using Nest.js. So I am to write a Docker file that will deploy their application into my Kubernetes. And I will convert that application to a Docker image. You understand? So that was when I have to come in and start doing my own research, write my Docker file, and add it to their code. You understand? That's that. I think I answered your question. So basically, when you have to write fresh one, is when the new developers come in and they are developing with a different language. Otherwise, you just pick from the existing code base. Maybe they are writing, in microservices. What I mean by microservices, some application we have, they would divide all the aspects of the application. For example, that admin UI that you see will be a Docker. Let me give you an instance. Let's go to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an open source. Sorry, this is a course I was doing. Let's go to LinkedIn. So this is the LinkedIn, right? All these things you see in LinkedIn that is appearing in the same page. It seems like they are appearing as one, right? But this is not actually one. They are modeled up. They are microservices. You can see this, and this, and this, and this. All these ones are widgets. You may like click LinkedIn Learning. You see, if you can see, everything has changed. So /learning. So you can see the URL is learning. So it open another page. This page could be another Docker file. Now, if I go to admin, my name, I want to know my learning. I click my learning. So this administration. So it's supposed to, it could be another file, another Docker that is making you can see. This could be another Docker file. You understand? Another Docker application, another application. So most times, a big application like this, instead of them to just be in one place, they will divide the application into different aspects. And those applications will be running independently in a container, independently. But they will be communicating with themselves. You understand me? So that process of breaking a big application into smaller chunk, you understand? Into smaller chunk. Meanwhile, those smaller chunk, they are networked together to be communicating within themselves. So that when you are using it, you may not even know that you are using another Docker container. For example, if I say home now, I may be using another container. If I say business, it means I click, let's go to technology. It means I click technology. Could be another Docker application that is up now. You understand? So, but because in my UI, I'm seeing all of them in one space, it may think that they are all one application. No, they are not one application, they are different applications. So when you scatter a whole complete application like this into smaller chunk, and you get me, and those smaller chunk have their own database sometimes. Those are called microservices. So, but if you combine them together, and you just attach one database to it, it's called monolithic. Monolithic means mono. Everything is one. Like the WordPress we did, they are all, most times are monolithic. So what does that mean? It means that you cannot, for example, now, for example, in a bank application, bank application, we have transaction, right? If you want to make payment, we have admin, people that will manage that, the application that manage those that want to register, you want to log in, you want to know if you can use it. That's admin portal. Then we have transaction. We have B2B, also known as platform, where other banks will go and register. You understand? That's why if you go to your mobile app, if you click your mobile app, you see all those banks that is registered with that bank will be there. You understand? KYC will be there. That's know your customer. All these are chunk of application. You understand me? Before, they used to be in one place. There used to be one application that we just have one database. The challenge is that when there is an issue, the whole application goes down. But sometimes, the way with the help of microservices now, if the transaction service is down, pod is down, it's only transaction that you will not be available. Every other aspect will still be available. You understand? So you see, and for you to scale up, maybe people are using transaction very well. People are transacting every time. You can decide to increase the number of instances of that transaction that is running. You can say, okay, 5 transaction pod be running, 2 admin be running. You understand? Because why? You cannot scale a particular services up. That's the advantage of using the microservices. I think that is within the scope of our training. But I'm just trying to explain some things to us. Hope we understand. I just don't want to go, I don't want something that will drive us far from what we are doing. So I'll be careful. Hope you're, but at least I've talked about my monolithic and microservices. You have an idea.
Please hold on. For we that we are not from a tech environment, I think it's really important for us to put these things in perspective. So would you be showing us, how to do all these things you just said? I'm not talking of the monolithic one, the one of if they are deploying in another language and maybe you join and You have other developers that are developing in a new language. All those things you explained, so that when we get on the job, we won't be looking lost, or you just point us in a direction of where we can get such videos to watch. And also, from listening to Nana, she mentioned Jenkins, that some people connect Docker to Jenkins. So I wanted to know if that's something you could also show us.
If not that,
I know maybe
the questions are coming in at the beginning, maybe by then you would have been able to be answering this question, because these are the things we plan to cover today.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
But
God bless you.
Questions are coming in at the beginning, and it's giving me some kind of, you understand? God, I don't know how to bring this. Okay, let me explain to you. All application that you want to Dockerize is from here they are using it. From here, this place, this site. So if you want to Dockerize any application, whatever application you call it, it's from here, right? Right? It's here. Anything that you cannot find here does not exist, right? Okay. The question is strong, and it's not like it's strong. It's giving us more ground to bring the house before the cat. Okay.
You don't need to answer it now. If everything is going to be covered, then it's okay. We can just take it in our stride.
It's going to be covered. It's going to be covered. And if you have found time to do that video, you will see that it's already covered. Okay. Now let's go straight to our class today. I want us to start having fun, right? So let's start with Nginx. I know we enjoy installing Nginx. Let's install a Docker. Oh God. Please, can we skip all the questions to the end of our class? Towards the end, is that possible? Is that possible?
Yes. Yes.
Possible.
Yeah.
So right now, I don't even know where to start again. Then I'll push it. So let's keep it that way.
Start from the beginning.
Okay. Now let me start with this. Please go inside. First of all, off the television, and go inside. Have you asked yourself, whenever you say apt install, what happened? Have you asked yourself, when you say sudo apt install, what is going on? Do you try to understand? Have you asked yourself that question? What is going on there? Yeah? When you say apt sudo, sudo apt install, maybe Nginx. What do you know what happened? What happened is this. This is administrative rights, right? This is a library. What do I mean by a library? A library is a collection of applications stored somewhere and invoked. So what I mean is that this library is actually in GitHub or a public repository, a public place where people can accept it. So apt is in Git. Most times, if you go to Git, you see, let's say GitHub. But I want to drive something home because When you come to GitHub and you say apt, you can say how many, you say how many applications, you say 18,090 what application. Let me go to the re-apt. What does this mean? Most times when you say apt install, apt get, apt this, what you are actually calling is a repository, is a file, is something that's already been organized somewhere. So what happened to your system is this: your application will go to Git, and when your system will go to Git and look for this apt, right? Because this apt is already installed on your system, and start looking for Nginx in the repository. If it sees Nginx, it will pull it into your system. And this apt, which is an engine, will start installing this Nginx. Meanwhile, this Nginx is in this repository or a public repository, in a public place. It's a public application that you can just install. This is what happened. But if you have it in your drive, if you have it in your local system, maybe you downloaded this Nginx installation file into your system and you say apt install, and you say Nginx, maybe the folder is Nginx, the application will no longer go to the internet. It will just install the one that you have in your system. It will no longer go to the public repository. So the same way in Docker, we have two types of Docker. You can either have a Docker file. You can have a Docker file in your system, or you can also, when you say Docker run, for example, now look at this simple script. Let me explain what this simple script means. This is a simple Nginx site. This one will automatically start your Nginx for you. If I say sudo Docker run, the word run means start. This word actually means start. Docker engine, start, look at, see, from here to here are declarative. This is the engine that is going to start. Docker run Nginx. So what happened is this: it will look into your system and see if there's an Nginx image. You know what I mean by image now? Image is a Docker file. It's a Dockerized code, or it's already a Dockerized code or a Dockerized file with Docker file in it, or a Dockerized repository with Docker file in it, that can run on your system. So if this Nginx, you've not cloned it in your system, it will go to the Docker hub and start looking for Nginx. So depends on the version. If you don't put any version, to look out for the latest version. But if you put version, maybe I put colon here and I say 10. What it look for? You go to the Docker hub and look for Nginx with 10 tag, with tag 10 or version 10, and install it. Now, what this 3 line does is that when it's going to run into your system, I'm saying it should name it my Nginx 1. It should open my O port. You know, my every laptop, for example, this is my browser. This is port 80. Every single the default browser is port 80. So if I say localhost, I put column here, and I put, even though I don't put column, I put column here and I put 80. What does that mean? It means I am actually exposing my port 80. But if you are using a VM, you just put your public IP here, which is the same thing as your local host. So what does that mean? It means that I'm saying this application that I want you to start now as a container, name it my Nginx. Bind it to my port, to my laptop port, or to my system port at port 80, which is my local port 80. And that container that you are starting, open port 80 in that container. So I'm binding to my own port so that that container that is running in my Docker engine to be binded, to be tied to to be linked to my port 80. So which means my engineers will be open. I will be able to access my engineers in port 80. So if I run this script now, because personally I don't have engineers repository in my system. If I say Docker run, watch, Docker run engineers, because engineers is the application, Docker run the name. I want to call it, let me call it cloud training for enthusiast engineers, right? Then the port, my port 80, which I just opened now, is empty. Then the Nginx, which is a container, which is like a VM, but it's a micro container, you understand me? The all ports are always locked. You have to open it. So I'm saying you should open port 80. By the time I run this thing, what it does is that if you look for Nginx locally, you say unable to find Nginx locally. You see, meaning there's no Nginx latest because I did not put the tag. I say Nginx, I did not put tag. But if I put Nginx tag this, it will have, but it will look for Nginx latest. You didn't see it locally. So what it does now is going to Nginx in Docker Hub. So it's downloading it. After it's finished downloading it, it will now start. So that's pull it complete, and it has started it, and this is the status, and it have exposed it to port 80, then give it a tag number. You can see this is the tag number, this is the status. So if I go to port 80 now, maybe I opened port 80 before, I didn't see Nginx. If I restart now, you see, welcome to Nginx. Because why? This is my port 80. So if I'm putting it on a server, if I'm putting it on a server, what will happen is that it's going to be the public IP address of my server and port 80. If you can do, if you like, you can just spin up a public instance and just run this code and copy the public IP address. You see that it's open. Although you can still change the configuration settings, right? That's going to be in a different dimension. But this is a simple way. Just run it. Let everybody run it. You see. Let me post it here. Why do I always take Docker last? Because Docker has so many things that is working with networking. That's why I took my time to talk about networking. You understand me? Application, server, VM, localhost. You understand? It becomes that's so that's why we cannot just start with Docker and start with Kubernetes and start with Jenkins. You guys will not understand. But now you can understand. And the way you understand, you will enjoy it. You understand? You can see that's how you start an Nginx server. That does not mean you cannot edit this Nginx. You can still edit it. For example, now let me go the same way you edit. You know, remember when we put Nginx in our local server, we're able to still edit it, right? You can still edit all these things. It's the same thing like a regular. Let me open my Docker. This is my Docker container. You can see now, Cloud Training for Enthusiasts is running at port 80. These two, they are running, but I did not expose it to any port. So that means they are running locally, internally. So I don't need, let me delete it. Let's talk about the one that is running. Now, if I want to edit this, I can edit it by saying open terminal. So you see what happened? Okay, I can edit it by this is the terminal, this is the application. Let's see. Let's edit. This is start. This is open on a browser. It should surely give you that. You can actually edit it by using the bash command. Understand me? There's a way you can also use bash command. You can see this is localhost open terminal. Okay, hold on. These are the things. These are the things that are happening inside my my Nginx server. Let's go back to the container. Hold on. These are the processes that took place. But this is no way I'm actually going to. There's a way you can also edit your container. You can edit it. There's a line for it, but I'm coming. I'm looking for the simplest way so that everybody can relate. Everybody can relate without having to think that it's hard. Image, container. Okay, hold on. Okay, you can see. If you take note of this line. This line, what it's saying is this. What I just did now, I've entered my Nginx server. But if you don't want to use that, I want us to use this simple line, this simple way of entering here. So if I say LX, you already know where the Nginx is. Where's our Nginx? Our Nginx, this thing is in var, Abi, where you can edit Nginx. Let's say cd/var ls. I want to have, where's our run docker? Okay, let me leave here. Let me go back. ls. Let's go to cd. I don't think it's here, Sha. It's not here. Okay, I think it should be in our share, cd/share, cd/share. There's no share. Okay, I'm trying to go into where our listing is. I'm inside the Docker container now. Where I am now is inside the Docker container. I'm trying to go to cd etc. If you go to etc, I know I'm going to have other regular etc stuff. It will be the apps. No, this is no way I'm going to. Okay. This is where you get your configuration file at Nginx dot. I'm sorry. Don't worry, you understand what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to establish that you can also edit a Docker container just the way you edit a Nginx application. You understand? So that sometimes you can see this is the same. Can you remember this? Do you remember this stuff? Can you remember this? In our regular Nginx, right? Can you remember this server in our Nginx?
Yes.
Yes.
This is where you define how your application, where it's going to listen to, where to listen and how to listen. So if you go to ls, you see config d. If I say cd dot config dot d ls, you see cat default. Just that under here you cannot use tab. You have to use this cat default of cat, sorry. Cat default dot. You see, remember this part. This is where our Nginx file is. This is what I'm looking for. You understand? So if I say, okay, CD, if you take me to home, CD, then I paste, I move that. So if I say ls, you can see our index.html, right? I say vim index.html. Remember this part, right? You can remember this part now. CD, user, share, Nginx, where we put our file. So I read this cat Nginx, cat index.html. You see that all the things that I displayed that time that you saw, they are all here. You understand me? But I don't think you can vim into it because I don't think vim is part of. Let me see if we can vim it. Index.html. So vim is not part of, but Docker is an immutable container. What does that mean? Docker, you don't edit, you don't work on Docker file internally. But you can, if you have to do it, that means you have to install Vim. You have to install Vim into the server. That's a Vim index.html. Vim will not work. So if I say remove, if I say touch, let me see if touch command is there. Index.html. To touch, if I say ls, you see that the file is there. If I say echo,
Easy. Come.
Echo.
Come with your tab.
So, cloud training for enthusiasts into the folder, into index.html to work. If I say cat index.
Yes. I want you to read the tips for getting a better sleep.
Please, can you mute this? Please, can you mute?
So they said don't be on your bed.
Can you mute, please?
Unless you want to be. Sorry.
Okay, now what I just did now, I just entered my server, my index, my Nginx. Just the way you also enter everything you need to enter. Now, let me restart. Restart my server. I've restarted. If I go to my browser and reload, you can see welcome to Cloud Training for Enthusiasts. So the same way you edit your regular instance, your VM, virtual machine, you can also edit your container. And remember, I told you a container is an engine that is running with your application on top of it. You understand? So what we just did now from this illustration, what we just did now from here is that we installed this Docker engine. We now call the Nginx. You understand me? So we have installed one Nginx now. So what I did in that Nginx, just like the way you also install Nginx in your regular virtual machine without this Docker engine. So, you know, if you install the same way engineers work in virtual machine, that same way you also work in a Docker engine. So what I just did now I just open inside this container, which is, see, a container is just like a VM, just like a small VM. That's why I said container dockerization is something like, it's almost like a regular VM, just that it has a micro part of it. So you can see the same, all the parameters that an engineers have in terms of ROPM is also have in terms of when you come to a Docker. So the same thing. If you also want to see run, so there are some public server, there are some public application. Like, okay, for example, now, what if I want to run another engineers again? What I will just do, the same engineers I want to run, I will name it, let me name this one 2, engineers 2. Then I will say this time bind it to port 82. If I run, what just happened? It just the same engineers again. Now I have 2 containers running, just that one is running at port 80, one is running at port 82. So if I say Docker PS, you see that I have 2 engineers running. So imagine if you have if it was a regular VM that we are doing just now, you will not be able to do this. In a regular VM, you can only have 1 engineer running. You cannot run like 2 engineers together. But with the help of a Docker now, I can run more than 5 engineers. Then if I go to my local server, I go to port 82. 82, I'll see another engineers. If I go to port 80, I'll see another engineers. Maybe we were the one that just changed the name of these engineers, right? So that is it. You can see, I can have more than 20 engineers. For example, I can keep an application up here. I keep another application up here. I can throw a load balancer to be moving between these two applications. God forbid somebody mistakenly shut down this. My application will still be open, right? I will still be able to see it on port 80 or G2. So you can see that's why Docker is more advanced and more relaxed than regular stuff. I can decide to be increasing my Docker stuff. Maybe I'm running 2 now. If I want to run another one, I'll just go here. I will just change the port, my local host port to port 89. Mind you, this is the port. This first one is your local, your system port or your server port. While this one is the container port of your container port. This is your, but most times leave your container port at port 80. This is port what? 89. Then what you do, your container must not have the same name. So you just change another name. You can put it 4 and you run it. Now I'm having 3 containers now running 1 application. So if I go to port 89 now, I go to localhost, then I say port 89. You see, another engineers. But they are different engineers, right? This is 1 engineer, this is another engineer, this is another engineers. Is it not interesting? Okay, please, I want to give you 2 minutes. Practice it. Practice this thing. Let's go into let's chop more meat. Let's go dive deeper. Please, 2 minutes, please. 2 minutes and come back when you are done. Please share your screen so that we all can have a feel of what you are doing. Don't forget, I told us that this is not a television. We are not here to entertain you. We are here to practice. So quickly run that. Let's move to the next stage. Hurry up. Everybody share your screen. Everybody, I expect everybody to share screen and not just not just Love and Co. I expect everybody to share screen. Everybody share your screen, please. Please, let's quickly do these things. We just have 5 minutes to practice this thing. We're going to the next stage. Some of us have not installed Docker. Lie. Okay. Oh yeah. Have you run it?
That's why we're not sharing, Mr. Patrick.
No, you wanted to come and be enjoying yourself, yeah.
Bear with us today. Let us watch.
No. Okay, I think, oh God. Come on now. I'm really
Patrick,
I hear you.
please can you just run us through installing this Docker stuff, please?
Everybody shut down your system. Let me do that. But I'm surprised though now. That means we didn't do anything last night. God is looking at us. So let me pause this thing. Like, pause recording. So this is the recommended process of installing Ubuntu or Docker on your Ubuntu. First of all, you set up a repository. You can click here and do this step.
So Patrick, please scroll up to the top. The top. Let me see. Okay, just stop there. Okay. I think I didn't try it because there's one that had this okay, let me just continue.
Set up this repository. The reason why you're setting it up is that if you are syncing your AWS, your GitHub, your local Docker to your ECRO, it's going to give you issue if you don't do proper installation. So that's why I wanted to do proper installation. Install using the repository. Use this.
I've done that. It's on CLI.
You have finished doing this, right?
Yes.
If to the end.
Yes, I've done it to the end.
You've done it to this end.
No. To uninstalling Docker engine, no.
You install to this place.
No, I didn't get into a stop pre-release. Just that repository, where repository and that is where I did it up to. Just a portion of repository, yes.
Yeah, you said sudo Docker.
Yes.
And it
Yes, yeah, that is where I ended it.
Okay, but you're not supposed to run Docker under sudo, right? But not to run Docker under sudo.
So what do I do from there?
Hold on. Docker desktop is different from this. For Docker, if you have finished doing this, what I would recommend you do, you come here and you follow through this process. This one is what you've done now. Download this. I'm not using deb, so it will not work for me. Download this.
Yeah, Patrick, sorry. Okay, this was what I was talking about. Now for this second command, which you have sudo apt after the update, then you have to choose, I think the arc. That should be So I think we're supposed to put something there. So I think that was where I was stuck. This ARCH.
The version, the architecture.
Yes, the version.
So
The version.
So what you are supposed to do, you can see where is the file that you downloaded, the version. When you click here, you are supposed to select the version you are going to install, right?
Yes.
Like me now, I'm downloading now. I'm not supposed to download, but I'm downloading.
Patrick, the file is a zip file. How do we unzip it?
You untie it. You untie it. I'm coming. Let me.
This process, they are very complex processes.
They're not supposed to be that complex. You are supposed to be able to select your version. I did a video on installation of Docker before. I'll check.
Patrick, can I share my screen so that you understand what I'm passing through?
Can you try this? Those of you that have already installed Docker before, can you try this command? Those of you that think you have installed the Docker successfully before, try this command. Let me send it to you. Can you try that? System CTL user start Docker desktop. What's the result?
It failed to start.
Huh?
Failed to start Docker desktop.
Why? What's the error? What's the error?
You need Docker, not found. You need Docker desktop service, not found.
Not found. That is the same thing too for me.
Docker service don't find. That means you've not installed Docker. That's what it means. Can you, okay, wait. First of all, you've downloaded this. Hold on, let me see what is, hold on. Let me follow, if I follow through this process, I'm going to get another thing.